Yo, welcome to another Red Thirst painting tutorial, my gamers. Today I'm going to be showing you how to paint Lemartes from the Blood Angels line. Okay, so to build Lemartes, this is a resin model, so it's a bit of a pain in the ass to work with, but it should end up looking good. So just grab your clippers, just right where the big main struts are, just cut each of these, trying not to cut any details off of the model. And then here, as you can see, it's not the same as the rest of the attachments. So what you want to do is go in with an X-Acto knife, being very careful, and just stab it in and just angle it in until it's separate. So just push it right in there. Resin models are very difficult to work with, but luckily there aren't many mold lines on them, so just keep cutting that out until you've got the end of this model done. Okay, even though it's off of the sprue, you can still see a few struts here and there, like right there, in between the legs, in between the feet, here on the belt. Just here, there. You just want to trim those, just cut them off the model very carefully, not to damage the actual sculpt of the part, because this is very difficult. Even here there's a little bit of sprue here which isn't meant to be there. It's a little bit of support. So again, being very careful not to damage the main model, because you don't want to accidentally chop off any cool details. So just keep trimming it till you get the look you want, and then afterwards we'll tidy it up with the X-Acto knife again. So this only really works for the main, very open bits, which you can get to very easily. After that, you want to grab your X-Acto knife again, and just, here, I'll zoom the camera in a bit for you. Just poke at it, being once again very careful not to damage the main model. Just stab it there and there. Then you can just push out that bit of sprue, and then that's that bit done. Tidy it up a bit, making sure not to leave any of the struts there. Another one right in here. So the same thing again, just little poke. As you can see, it broke it from the other side, so that's useful. Because these models are very, very delicate, so you don't want to damage them. You just want to ensure that you've got what you want and nothing else. Even there, that's not supposed to be there, I'm pretty sure. So, I'll double check, but I'm pretty certain that's not meant to be there. But yeah, you can also see it on the base here, you've got these there. Luckily they seem to be big enough that you can just grab your clippers and just snip them off. And then you might want to go in with a file and tidy up a bit to 100% ensure they'll fit in the base perfectly. Just keep snipping them away, making sure not to miss anything or cut any detail out. Now grab your file, just back and forth for a while until it's flat with the actual base. Yeah, it's almost flat there. Also, to get rid of any particles or anything, just give it a quick blow. There you go. Same thing again on both sides. And you can dry fit it to the base, see if you like how it fits, or if it lays flat or not. If it doesn't, then you just want to keep filing it away until it does. So grab our base here, just dry fit it, just push it in there. See, it doesn't go in there, so you need to trim a bit off here. So just once again grabbing your file, back and forth, bit of trimming here and there. Test it again. Still not wanting to go in there because of that little tiny bit of flash right there. So it might be easy to grab the X-Acto knife using the back of the blade. Peel it off like that. And that should smoothen it out a bit. Now you can try again. There. If you're not happy with how it sits, just remember to keep shaving. Like there's a bit of a gap here. You can just put the blade under. So I'm going to do a bit more shaving there. Just pull it off. Once again, using your knife. Just put it down a bit. And here, it's not sitting exactly right, so just grab your knife, go back and forth, shaving it down gradually until it's just perfectly flat with the rest of this flat section here. Same on each side. Test it again. It's a bit better, but could probably do with a bit more. So, touch the base here. Yeah, resin's a very soft yet weak material to work with, so pretty difficult to make and build the models for it. Plus you gotta use super glue, which is a bit more risky than just normal plastic glue, because you can stick your fingers together or whatnot, so it's a bit more difficult going with the file again. Which is why, to be honest, I'm quite happy they've stopped recently making resin models and have moved back to just normal plastic. There you go. That's the main piece of the body sorted. There. Now we're going to move on to the next part. Okay, now for the jump pack here. Once again, pretty much the same process before. Taking out the big struts. And then going in and tidying up all the smaller ones, which are just there to help structure the main resin pieces. So just trim here, here, and then if you just push down a bit here, the rest will come with it, except for this one little bit because I want it to be a pain. Trim that a bit, just a little bit down there. Luckily, it seems that that's the only actual strut which is directly in the way other than here, which could do with a little bit of trimming there. So that's that part done. We're not going to glue anything yet, we're going to wait until everything's been cut out. Just here, next onto the arm with the bolt gun, or bolt pistol. Just put it out again. Now for this strut here, just grab your clippers, being very careful not to cut any of the arm off. Just there and there. And you can go in and tidy up the strut in a minute. Then, if you look there, right there, you can see a little tiny strut. You can just take off using your clippers. And it's going in with a X-Acto knife. So again, zooming in. Just a little trim here and there. And then also there's a big strut here, which you want to get rid of. Just a big piece of flash there. So that's big enough you can just go in with the snippers and just trim it down a bit. Then go in with the file. File it down. Going back and forth until it's flat. There are a lot of struts directly where you don't want struts, so you just gotta be careful. But here, if you look from the strut, there's a big piece of flash which isn't there on the other side, so we know that's not a detail. So you can just trim that off. Right there, and Then go in with the X-Acto knife again. Just trim it down a little bit. Just right there. That's the main of that gone. Then using the back of the blade to just trim it down a bit. A little bit there. And that's the bolt gun done. Or bolt pistol. Now for the arm with the Crozius Arcanum. Just want to trim here. It's once again cutting off all the major struts and going in and tidying up. Being careful not to cut off the area where the arm connects to the torso. Which, now that I think about it, is impossible because this is where the actual peg sits into. It's not the pegged part. Just detach it from there. You can see these two little struts here, so cut those. And there. Here. And right next to the purity seals. This area here is supposed to be flat, so that needs trimming down. Luckily, once again, the areas seem to be big enough that you can just snip them with the clippers. And if they're not, just go through with your X-Acto knife and tidy it up again. There's a little flash there. If it wants to focus. There you go. Right there, so just go in again. And then trim it off. Definitely going with the X-Acto knife. And just tidy it up a bit. And that's that arm done. So we got all of the pieces sorted over here. So what you want to do now is grab your super glue, being very careful not to glue your fingers when doing this. But if you do, if you can, twist them, because super glue's incredibly strong at pulling like this, but it cracks if you twist. So if you got your fingers here stuck, if you could twist your fingers like that, you've got a higher chance of breaking it than just trying to pull them apart. So yeah, we're not going to be gluing the jump pack on, due to it'll be a lot easier painting. So we're not going to glue that on, but we're going to glue the model to the base. Just grab a little bit of super glue here, bit on either side, just to ensure a connection, and then just push it into the base. So now we've actually got something to hold on to. If you get any cat hairs in there, just pull them out, making sure once again that it is all the way pushed in and flush. Of course, depending on what type of base you're going to be doing, you might need, or you might be avoiding some of the issues of some of the gaps being in the way. Now for the arms, we want to glue this arm first. Glue right in that little socket there. Just want to put a tiny little dab of super glue. That much. And just hold it there until it sets. Just keeping it there, not moving your fingers at all, otherwise you might do this and then you'll have a little gap which you need to fill in with hard coat afterwards. Of course, once they're glued together, you can still go in and tidy up any bits of flash you've missed, as long as they're not too deep into the details. Okay, that's another arm done. Ooh, now, what you want to do is grab the other arm, same thing again. Just before doing so though, remember to check if it can dry fit. Just line them up. That seems to fit flush, so grab it. Put it in the socket, right in there, making sure that the pose is correct and that you're lining up the shapes. Once again, letting it dry first. Just waiting for it to dry. If you miss any spots, once again you just go in with the X-Acto knife and tidy that up. So yeah, wait for that to dry until it can support itself. You can start going in with your X-Acto knife and just tidy up any bits of flash, like I missed a bit here on the crotch pad, so just grab your X-Acto knife, put it in, yeah. Making sure not to damage the main part of the model. Just do a little bit of tidying up here. Obviously you might have missed other spots as well, so always give the model a once over before you decide to spray it, which we'll be doing in a minute. Now before spraying, what I want to do is, with the jump pack and the main part of the model, what I want to do is where it's got the little ball here where it sits into the jump pack, is grab a bit of blue tack and put that over the little ball, so that way spray paint won't hit it. That way you can still super glue that without having any gloss on there. And then the same thing here with the main little ball here, always making sure to add enough though that you can still remove it. So now we're going to spray it. Okay, so after you've sprayed the model, here, I just used black gloss, but if you look closely, you can see some gaps here and here, where the base isn't actually wide enough, like the slot isn't wide enough for the actual hole in the base. So what I want to do is just grab a low hard coat, like a big blob like that. If you just slot that on top, it'll end up filling in the gap, so it won't be as noticeable later on. And same here. So it's quite visible now, but it'll dry transparent and glossy. But for the armour, what you want to do is grab some tissue paper. It's a technique from the Artist Opus YouTube channel, the black armour tutorial. So there's that. So just gonna grab some Dark Reaper right here and grab a big ass chunk of it and just chuck it on your palette, because there's a reason for that, which we'll be showing later on, being gonna need it again. So just grab a dry brush, doesn't have to be that big or small, just working dry brush, and just rub it into a piece of tissue, making sure that there's none left on the brush. Well, basically none, but okay, I just want to take the model and just cover the entire thing in this Dark Reaper dry brush, focusing mainly on the highlighted areas, like the head, the chest, the shoulder pads, not really worrying too much about the shadows and stuff like that. Just all over the model. On the shoulder pads here, on the arm, and see, that's already bringing out a few of the details. So yeah, go over basically the entire model, leaving a few areas being the recesses needed. Grab a bit more Dark Reaper and do the same thing again with the dry brush, just rubbing it off until there's none left, and paint over it. Just there, right at the back. And for a painting handle for the jump pack, I'm just using pop nylic oxide since I never use it. And let's do the same thing again for the jump pack. Just back and forth at the top here, all over, back here, little jump pack areas here where the actual like exhaust comes from. Trying to push that, push this, back and forth down here, taking out all the little details like the little grates here. This area there, tops, bottoms. We go back over here, go back over the arm and the hand. And then after this is dried, we're going to start introducing Celestra Grey, and then after that we're going to introduce some Corax White. So that's the main arm a bit almost done. Just do the toes, which are going to be painted skeletal, just like the head, since they look bony. So, there you go. Okay, so as I said, we're going to grab some Celestra Grey, grab a blob of it, add that to the palette directly underneath it so you can mix the two. Wash the paint off here, not to not mix it too much. And should get that sort of colour. So yeah, it's a bit light, so if you just go a bit light you'll get the colour wrong. Just introduce whatever colour you want it to lean a bit more on. Like here I want it to be a bit more dark Reaper, so I'll mix it a bit more. And mix it back down until you get the tone you want. Grab it on your dry brush. Maybe mix it a little bit further in. There you go. Get it off your dry brush again using the tissue paper. Grab them all, do the same thing again, focusing even more only on the big highlights, such as the top here, back here. If you look at it from a top down view it helps you know where to hit, like the back of the foot here, back of the knee, top of the head, arms, the hand, knee pad here, toes again, sort of thigh piece, and a bit on the back here. Like this, back of the foot, leg there, and then grab a bit more. Do the same with the jump pack. Just grab it. Same again, just right at the top, where the light will hit the most. Mix it in a bit. Then add a little bit more Celestra Grey. Okay, maybe a bit too much there. So grab a load. Mix a bit more in. Wipe it off in the tissue paper again. This time I mean even more so just for the top bits. Right there, hand, arm, shoulder, knee, toes, thigh, crotch logo, here, back of the leg, and here. Now, after that's dried, we're going to grab some Corax White. Alright, as I said, grab a tiny amount of Corax White because this will very quickly brighten the whole mix. About that much-ish. Mix it in. This time aiming only for the high spots, no slight gives, just right where the edges would be hit. In this situation there's basically no give anymore. Just wipe off in your tissue. Test on your hand if needed. Just right at the top of the head here, top of the corner here, the hand, top there, knee pad, back of the foot, and the top pad here. A little bit on the chest. Then the top of the jump pack here. Right there. There. And then that's the black of the armour finished. Tell a lie, I'm going to introduce some Nuln Oil. Darken it down a bit, because at the minute it is very bluey grey. Just grab a brush you don't really care for too much. Grab some Nuln Oil, wipe it off if needed, and just cover the entire model, including the jump pack. Just bring it down a notch and stop it from being so blue-grey and turn it more into a sort of very dark grey-black sort of colour. Remember to keep adding some to your brush if you run out, and if you pull, just wash your brush out and then pick it up and move it. Here and there. And then a bit on the jump pack. Now to wait 45 minutes for that to dry. Now that the Nuln Oil's dry, you just want to grab a bit of corn red, add that to your palette. Just a little bit. Don't need too much, but probably a bit more than that. So about that much, just slap it on there. Put a bit of water in it, mix it up. Like that. And then on these straps here, on the chest, you just want to paint these red. Just making sure not to miss any spots or paint over any of the black. Bit here. Basically just each of the 4 straps are going to be painted red. Because that's what colour they're supposed to be according to the artwork which I'm referring to, which looks like this. So yeah, just trying to make sure that these are all red. Making them look sick. Here. Making sure not to miss that little tiny gap there. And same on the other side now. So again, being careful not to block any detail. And then the top piece. And after this, we're going to do some of the shoulder pads. Right in there. You may want to grab a bit more red, and right in the centerpiece of the shoulder pad where it steps in from the rim. You just want to paint that there. All over it, except for the rim. You want to leave the rim black. It's easier if you just paint over the logo temporarily, and then we'll paint that in a minute. Just keep going there. Making sure to properly work it into the crevices. And there as well. And that's most of the red done. Got to wait for that to dry. And whilst it dries, I'm going to grab some Xandri dust. Base coat all the skull parts. Like the head, the shoulder, the other shoulder pad. And the toes. So once again, watering down the Xandri dust. Start off with the head. So probably want to use a smaller brush than that for this. Go for a small brush. All over the head. Once again, try not to fill in any of the details by using thick paint, so you're watering it down. Wanting to make sure it's a nice even coat all over. Trying to miss the crack in the centre of the head, because you're going to be filling that in with Rigland. So, put that in there. Then the jaw at the bottom here. We're gonna age this in a minute once this is dry. So a little bit there. Making sure to fit that in. And a little bit there. And then fill the nose as well. And then making sure the eye or socket's also full. Now the toes, there's going to be much the same story, just base coat in a shabby bone. There. And the other one. If you muck it up and get a bit somewhere else, you can just fill that in with black. Same with this shoulder pad here. Just filling it in the shabby bone. Just getting a good amount of coverage. This will probably take multiple layers as a quick warning. Putting it in a bit there. Bit in there. Bit there. All over here. Just again, not worrying about the logo, we'll paint that in a bit. Also filling in the eye, the nose and the forehead. A little bit further into there. There you go. That's the skeleton stuff done. And now the gaunt red will have dried. So it's going to grab some Mephiston red. Add that to your palette. Then fill in each individual piece of the strap, like it's split up into sections as you can see here. Just paint one of these in Mephiston red. Even the edges and the very deep recesses just to be kept in corn red. Then we'll highlight them with Evil Sons and Wild Rider, giving them quite a nice little look. And we're going to do the shoulder pad a little bit different to the rest. Okay, so I've done all the 2 layers of the bone stuff, and then I've also done 2 layers of the Mephiston. But now we're going to water down our Mephiston quite a bit and use it somewhat as a glaze on the top of the shoulder pad here to emulate light hitting off the top of it. Just a little bit here and a little bit there, right at the bottom. Bit here. And that's all you're going to do for the shoulder pad. And we've got to wait for that to dry. But as it dries, you can grab Reekman's Flesh Shade. Yep. Give it a good shake. You don't want your skull to be shiny. So, just grab that. Get a bit on your brush. And just paint over the head. All over, not missing any spots. Like that. Same with the back. Do it a bit more. Bit at the back. Back at the front. There you go. Toes. Same story. What regular Flesh Shade does is more of a skin tone, so it makes it look like it's a bit more worn, dirtied, but also like it was originally underneath skin, and been tainted into a bit red from the blood. So just all over the skulls. Now to wait for that to dry. Okay, so now that that's dry, you can go in with Evil Sun Scarlet and do the first highlight of all the straps on the very top. So just grab a bit, put it on your palette, water it down a bit. And using the side of your brush if possible, try to get the little straps. Right there. Just the edges, don't want to fill in the entire thing. There you go. That's that one done. Might be able to see a bit better on this side. There you go. So you can see how much brighter that looks compared to the other one. You just want to do that for each individual strap. Once that's been done, I'll be back. Okay, so now that's been done, you just want to go in Wild Rider Red and hit only the corners with the colour. So just like on this corner there, like there. You just want to go in very carefully, like that. And do that once again for each and every individual strap. Okay, so now that's been done, you want to water down some of your Evil Sun Scarlet. Do the last little highlight on the shoulder pad. It's just right at the top here. Place it right on top. Right there. Like that. Now, I want to go back to Xandri Dust and pick out the main areas of the bone, so but leaving it in the recesses, so right at the top here, avoiding the cracking around the little blood drop on the nose here, the ridge of the eyebrow there, same on both sides, and just repeat the process for the toes and the skull on his shoulder pad. What this will just do is just bring it up a bit and stop it from being a bit bland. Then we'll go in and do a edge highlight with Xandri Dust. Just pick out all the teeth. Yeah, there you go. Don't worry about the eye sockets, we'll be painting those in a minute. Just with the teeth, just give it like a edge highlight here. It just makes it a bit easier to paint the toes with if you just highlight them. Like that. It just leaves the edge of the toes sorted. That needs a bit of tidying out there. And same for the skull. Just ignore the Aquila for now. Just all over the entire head. Right there. This is solely to bring it back up to more of a skull sort of tone than it was before. Now that the skull's dry, we can highlight it using a shabby bone. Grab some Screaming Skull, slap it on that palette, add a bit of water to it, and you only want a small amount of this, because you also want it to be quite transparent, because it is quite a sudden change going from Xandri Dust to a shabby bone. So right at the corners here, like where the ridge is for the bone there, it starts to go flat, right over there. Right there, on the other side, top of the eye socket and the tip of the nose. The teeth, grab a little bit more if it starts like running into the recesses. Right across the edge here, just to emphasize the gap. Top of the eye socket. Bit thicker there. There you go. Now let's repeat the process for the toes and the skull on the shoulder. Now that's dry, we're gonna work on some of the facial details. So just grabbing a bit of Abaddon Black we used to tidy up some of the toes or anything where it went out of line. I'm going to paint right in the eye sockets. It's quite easy to see, but we don't want to overfill it. Let's paint them in black. Same for the other side. Once again, if you overflow, just grab a bit of the paint you need to cover it over and just do exactly that. Cover up where you went over. There. Then you want to grab some Abaddon black again. And paint that onto the blood drop on the top of his head right there. So there's a reason for this. We're going to build it up to be red. Just in case again, I'm going to do a bit more tidying up on the Ashanti bone. Just right there. Grab a bit more Abaddon black and fill in the eye socket a little bit more. Right there and there. A little bit further across. There you go. Got nice looking eyes there. Now, you want to take a tiny dot of Wild Rider. So, yeah, that much. And paint it right in the upper center of the eye socket. It'll end up looking like that. Do the same for the other eye. Okay. Not looking in the same direction. So just grab a bit of Abaddon black and just cover it over. And no one will ever know. Okay, so now I'm going to grab some corn red. This is for the blood droplet on the center of the forehead. Go mainly for the center. Try not to get it out of the edges, while still leaving a bit of black there, sort of like that. So you can still see some of the black. You can also see some of the red. A little bit there. There you go. And then, what you want to do is wait for it to dry. Okay, so it's dry now. Now you want to take some Mephiston, this time focusing only on the lower half. So, right here. You can see there's still some corn red up at the top, but it's mostly Mephiston. Right. And then grab some Wild Rider red here. But only on the very bottom. Like that. And there's your blood droplet. You just gotta add a little glint using Corax White. Just give the pot a shake. Add some to your palette. Using that. You're gonna put a little tiny dot on the top. Left. Like that, giving the illusion of glass. Now, we're going to draw or paint a even smaller dot right in the center of where we did the Wild Rider for the eyes. So right, a little bit too much, so just spin it off. What about that much on there? Aim directly for the center. This, you will have to hold your breath for, so I'll be quiet for a minute. There. Just lightens it up a bit. Makes it look a bit glowy. There you go. See that properly. There you go. Same for the other eye. There you go. Now, you want to go in with some bloodletter. Yeah. Once it's dry, and just paint that over there to make it look a bit more orangey again. Grab a bit on your brush, wipe some of it off, and paint it over the eye. There you go. It's okay if it goes out of the line, in fact it's actually best because it makes the eye look like it's glowing a bit. Which is the effect which I'm after. It should look like that. Once again though, if you get too much in there, like I did there, you just empty off your brush and pick it up. What's that? Now that's dry, to make some of the sockets a bit darker, I'm going to grab a bit of Abaddon Black and circle around where the white dot is. So, right here, you can see it's made it a bit darker. There we go. Same again on the other side. Bit more on the other side. There. Next, we want to go in, grab some gold, and we'll do all the gold details. Okay, so let's grab some Retributor armor, give it a good old shake, add it to the palette, right there, water it down a bit, since gold paint seems to be quite thick. There you go. And then we're going to do this here, and then the little chalice, so colour the entire chalice in, including the top. There. Well, remember the top is right there. Right there. Now, the quiller on his chest, on his waist. Everything including the blood drop in the centre. Right there. A little bit more. There. Other side. There you go. Now, grab Liberator Gold, yeah. Add that to your palette. Remember to give it a good shake. There you go. Well, bit there. Edge highlights, so just like the corners here. And there, at the top, side. There you go. That brightens it up compared to the other gold. Just centre bits, and then you'll want to highlight each feather using this, like there, there. Up the top there. There you go. That's all the gold detailing. Now you want to take your Ashanti bone again and do all of the cloth and parchment stuff, like in the chest, the purity seals, everything in Ashanti bone. Okay, now whilst we're waiting for that to dry, I'm going to grab a bit more and do the chalice on his shin there in Retributor armor. Right at the top, base, and the stand in between. There you go. Okay, now we're going to pick out all the silver details, like the wires here on the sides of his face, and then on the weapons as well. So to do that, we're just going to use lead voucher, give it a good old shake. Don't want it to be split now, do we? So just grab it off there, put it on your palette, water it down a bit, and then what you want to do is just paint all the wires, like here in the center, right here. I'm gonna grab a bit more. Don't want to miss anywhere or get it on somewhere you don't want it to go. So now the cheeks here, the sides here. There you go. Now you want to grab your dry brush, grab some off of your palette, rub it into your piece of tissue, and then right on the gun here, just dry brush the whole thing. Probably do with having a bit more on it. So it's going to take some from the pot, give it a good wipe off on the tissue paper, work it into the bristles, and do it for the gun on both sides. Then this central part of the Crozius Arcanum, there, missed a few seals there, so I'll paint those in a minute. There you go. Okay, so now I'm going to tidy up the Crozius Arcanum a bit. Right on the edge here, I've got a bit of red. Just cover over that with a bit of red and black. Back coverage here wasn't the best, so tidy that up a bit. Now once that's dried, you're ready to dry brush your gold. Okay, so now that that's done, you can just grab some of your gold paint here, get a load of it on your brush, and wipe it off on your tissue paper and just dry brush it on top of the Crozius here. So let me get this to focus. There we go. This will give it like a really old sort of battered gold look. It's up there. There we go. Make it look really old and aged. And then what you want to do, grab some Liberator armor, add it onto your palette. I recently switched to pots of dropper pots. There you go. That could probably do with a bit of mixing. That looks a bit split. Mix it back up together. There you go. Grab your dry brush, grab a bit of the stuff on there, wipe most of it off, and only hit the top edges, like where you'd see it from top down, like up there, on the edge there. There you go. Nice little bit of gold there. Bit different to the other gold, but that's what I was going for, making it look a bit older than the rest. Then you want to take the same Liberator armor and just like layer it on top of the chalices and the wings here. Just making sure to miss the very deepest gaps, like there, there, middle bit there and there, then the top little ridge there, down on top of the wings and each little feather. Okay, so next you want your big boy Celestra Grey. Give that a good old shake and add it to your palette, because we're going to use this to do some of the wings on the shoulder pad. So you want quite a small brush, mix in a little bit of water. There we go. And this way you can see the raised area on the shoulder pad, like there. You just want to paint over that with your Celestia Grey. Might take a few layers, but it'll look better for it. Yeah. Now that's been done. Grab some Agrax Earth Shade and put that all over all the parchment. So like the scrolls on his shin here. Right there. Add that in, it gives it a bit more of a brown and dirty look. And we'll layer over it again with a shabty bone in a bit. Just making sure not to miss any of the parchment areas. Covering the correct spots. Try not to get it to spill over because it will give a different look to the other stuff surrounding it. Now that's dry, gonna grab some good old Corax White. Just again, giving it a good shake. Adding it to our palette. Just a little, there you go. And just use that to edge highlight the logo or the wings on his shoulder pad. So if I just get this to focus, like just up at the top there, on all the ridges, using the side of your brush because it makes it a lot easier. Right, at the top there. Same on the other side. There. And you just want to do that for all of the edges on it. Now that's dry, just grab a bit of your Retributor armor and paint the blood drop in the middle there. Just there, just paint right over it. Making sure to hit the sides because that's where the actual gold will be visible. Because we're going to be painting the gem on the centre in a minute. Making that look nice. Want it to be nice and clean. Not anywhere else. Purely on that blood drop in the middle. If you go onto the red though, you can always just paint it back over with Mephiston. Now we're going to paint the wax on top of the purity seals. Just going to grab some solid Screamer Pink. Give it a good old shake. And add it to our palette. Like that. So this will just be covering the wax part of the purity seal right at the top. Here. Just there. And do that for every single bit of parchment which has the wax on top. All over the model. Just fill the entire thing in. And we'll be highlighting it with corn red to make it look like a bit of a different red than normal. It's important to make the wax look different to the rest of the model, otherwise it'll just look like it's built into the armour. There's a bit of parchment there, so add the wax on top. Right there. And then that's that done. So, by now, the Agrax Earth shade, which we placed all on the actual parchment pieces, should be dry, so we're going to layer it, leaving it only in the darkest recesses. So it'll just brighten the model up a bit. Just there, making sure to leave the shadows dark, so that way it actually has an effect, so it looks a bit more lively than before. So just repeat that for all of the parchment on the model. Now that's been done, grab some corn red and highlight the parchment, or not the parchment, but the wax on the top, just hitting the edges, and the very centre dot there. It'll give it a slightly different shade compared to the rest of the armour. So just dot there, circle around there, dot in there, and just repeat this step for all of the wax. Should give a pretty clean effect. Now we're going to get to painting the gem on the shoulder, little blood drop. So if you look closely, you can see there's a bit of an indent. I just want to paint the area where it actually indents on top in black. It doesn't make sense now, but you'll see why we do this in a bit. And just to repeat the wing process on the opposite side. Now to finish off the gem, I'm going to grab some corn red. You just want a really small amount for this. And just do the very bottom area, leaving the top part black, sort of like that. And then I'm going to go in with Evil Sun Scarlet. And just do about half of what you filled in before, so about a quarter of the whole gem. So about that, but trying to curve it as well, so it gives a nice curvature to the gem. And then let's grab a little tiny dot of Corax White and add that to the top left corner. You can't really see it there, but here, right there. That sort of simulates glass, and that's your gem done. Nice. To paint the Crozius, what you want to do is this little bar area here, go in with some lead belcher. Just paint over that to turn into a bit more of a steel instead of a gold. Just there, on the back as well. And then you want to go in with dryad bark here. Give it a good old shake and add it to the palette. Little blob there. No need for too much. This is basically all we're going to use that for, so yeah. You want to grab a bit of a bigger brush, mix a bit of water in there. There. Just paint the entire handle there, trying not to paint the hand because that'll be very difficult to do because we dry brushed it. The next thing we're going to focus on is this knee pad here. Just want to paint the whole thing in corn red, trying not to hit the skull and the laurel next to it. So just cover over the whole thing, making sure once again to not miss any spots, because if you miss your spot it's not going to look any good, is it now? Cover the entire thing in that, and once that's dry, I'm going to layer some Mephiston red around it, making sure to miss the shadows. Okay, so now it's dry, just grab your Mephiston red, apply it right around the edges. So, right there, around the ledge on the side. Making sure to leave the shadows still dark though, you don't want to paint those in. Then, you want to grab your shouty bone, your palette, and just paint the little skull in the centre. Just a little bit there, and there. And it'll look a bit cleaner once it's dry, but then you've got that sorted. Then, you want to grab Caliban green, give it a solid shape. Add it to your palette, and we're going to paint the laurels around said skull on the palette. Just that. That's been done. Paint all over the little leaf pattern on there. Scrape some of that off, and paint all over them, making sure to not hit the red, because otherwise, whilst you can still tidy it up, it just doesn't look the best, does it? Now to finish the Crozius, you want to grab Mornfang Brown. Give it once again a solid shake. Add it to your palette. And then what we're going to do with this is, if you look closely at the actual Crozius, with the handle there, you can see a little sort of pattern built into it there where you can see it like alternating. So it's going to paint each one of those with Mornfang, like this. So that way it still leaves the shadows a bit darker than everywhere else. And let's repeat that throughout the entire thing. Now you want to paint the pommel of the Crozius with lead belcher. Paint the very bottom piece here, just the pommel, so paint that all over. Making sure not to hit the brown in any spots, because otherwise that'd just be a bit bad. It's a bit of a frustration and annoyance. Now that's been done. Grab Warboss Green. Now give this one a really good shake, because I find that it really likes to split. Just add that to your palette. That was a bit much, but there you go. Yeah, I don't need that much at all. Really only need about this much, because what we're going to be doing is painting each little leaf on the laurel on the shin there. Let it focus, that way you guys can see. There you go. In each little leaf there, in this. Now quite a few people would be saying why not War Flesh, since that's the in-between tone. But the reason being, this ups the contrast a bit between the shadows. So painting each of those individually, and that's done. Now we're very nearing completion with this guy. He's got the base and a few more other details, and then the jump pack, and we're done. Okay, so now we're going to paint all the grenades on the pouches here, there, and there. So just going to grab some Caliban green from our palette and just paint over them. Just there, paint all over it, making sure not to miss any spots, and also try not to get it on the black. It's an absolute pain in the arse to repair if it's on the black since we dry brushed it. It's very difficult to get that same texture. So just keep going until you've painted each and every single one. As that's drying, you're going to grab some Mornfang Brown, also from our palette. I'm going to paint the scroll here on his hip, right there. You're going to paint that brown. Try not to hit the wax because we're going to paint that wax on the centre the same as we did with the purity seals. So just basing it in Screamer Pink and then painting over that in Corn Red. Now we're going to grab some Warboss Green and paint the bottom area, leaving just the centre little rim section there a bit darker. So like that, so it's still got the recess visible. So there, and just repeat that for all of the different grenades. And then once that's done, we're going to paint the brown scroll here and the purity seal the same as before. So it's up the top there. There you go. Now we're going to grab Steel Legion Drab, give that a good old shake. This is one of the ones which we haven't put into a drop pot yet, so it's still in the old school Citadel pot there. So we're just gonna layer this on top of the scroll. So just make it look a bit more old and dirty and a bit battered. Just get this to focus. There you go. Just here and there. Making sure to keep all the recesses Mornfang Brown still. And then grabbing Screamer Pink to just paint the little purity seal in the centre. Like so. And then one more there. There you go. Okay. I'm going to grab the lead belcher and this little spiked section here on the leg. Can't really see it now, but it is there. There you are, right there. We're going to paint over that in lead belcher. So that'll just make it pop a bit more and be a bit more poppy, so it's a bit more noticeable and nice to look at. Okay, since the base tends a while to dry, we're going to apply it now. So what it is just we're going to use some technical Astro Granite. Just give that a really good shake. If you don't shake it up, you're just going to end up with a not very nice looking texture afterwards, which is what you're after with this stuff. So just grab a brush, which is a bit old and damaged, doesn't really do that much, so just grab that and just blob it onto the base anywhere you want. And the reason we did the hard coat to start with is what that does is it fills in the gaps, that way there isn't a dip in the side of the base. And if you get any on the sides like I have now, if you just grab a wet brush you can wipe it off whilst it's still wet. Just there. There you go. It's been shaken out. You're basically just waiting for that to dry for a while. So we're going to work on some other stuff. For example, if we grab some more lead belcher, you can paint the little rim around the grenades. So we want a very small brush for this. So grab that. Just that little rim section which we avoided before. Paint over that, and then make it a bit more shiny and detailed. Look like a bit more work went into it than it actually did. Now this model is basically done. Now all we've got to do is the jump pack. Okay, so now we're going to work on the jump pack. So first thing we're going to do are these little silver grates up at the front there, little vents. We're going to grab some lead belcher. I wanted to say iron breaker then, but that's not the right paint. So just fill the entire thing in, trying not to get it on there, but if it is, when it's still wet, you can just wipe it off with your finger, like I did just then. Just making sure to fill in the gaps, because we're going to be going over this in Nuln Oil, because Nuln Oil looks absolutely outstanding when put on metallics, especially silver. So just repeat that for the other side. Next thing we're going to paint are the little chalices on each side of the vents. So we're just going to grab some Retributor armor and paint this exactly the same as the chalice actually on Lemartes. So just apply it all over the chalice. Once again, try not to get it on the black, because that's going to be a pain in the ass to tidy up if it dries. Just like that. Here you go. Once again, making sure it's also symmetrical. Yeah. Just the same on the opposite side. Trying to get a nice coverage, otherwise it'll just look blobby and fill in the blood droplet in the middle. And we're also going to paint the gold on all of the blood drops and this little gem here. Just here. Paint all over that in Retributor, and then we're also going to layer on top of that some Liberator gold. We're going to paint these teardrops the same as we did on the shoulder pad. There. And there. A little bit there as well. A pair of wings. Then you're done with that section. And we're going to whip out Leadbelcher again and paint the chain which is on. Just paint over that like that. Here. There you go. Doesn't look the best at the minute, but it will later on, because we're also going to Nuln Oil over this. Okay, same on the opposite side again. Just Leadbelcher. And all over the chains. Right there. Yeah. And also, on the right side, or the left, on Lemartes' left, you want to fill in the chain there, because the chain continues, whilst it doesn't on the other side. And we're also going to paint this little section here, the little tubes, in Leadbelcher as well. Just add a bit more colour and make it pop a bit more, and a nice bit of contrast. There you go. Now we're going to paint all the parchment in a shabty bone, and paint the purity seals exactly the same as before. Okay, so for the purity seals, there's 4 on this side and 2 on this side. So just grab your shabty bone, add a bit of water to it, as you should do with every paint. Give it a nice bit of consistency. And we're just going to paint over the purity seals. And if you're wondering what I'm using to hold this, I'm literally just using a stick. So just use that. So that just helps you when it comes to holding it, because if you're holding it with your own hands, you're probably either going to scratch some paint off, or what you're going to do is just going to get paint on your fingers and apply that everywhere else as you're holding it. Just keep painting over these so they're based. Doesn't look correct, but it is. Just from the back. Also, once again, just tidy it up if you do anything wrong. It'll be a bit more difficult than usual, but if you just stipple on Dark Reaper, because if you notice at the start there was a white blob here, but if you just stipple on some Dark Reaper, which is basically just a posh way. Okay, so now to work on the little gems, what you're going to do is just grab a little bit of moot green on the one which we used on Autumn Cassius. We're going to paint it the same way, so just paint the little gem there, and that's basically it for the moot green, to be honest. But now grab some Liberator Gold, decide to split on my palette, so just taking a bit off and mixing it back in. Then we're just gonna, well, that was a bit much on the brush, so make sure to twist it to get a nice little point like that. And we're just gonna layer that on top, leaving only the recesses, the Retributor, Jesus. Just keep going there and there. And then up at the top there, and this little single link there. That's very nice. It gives a bit more of a pale look, because I prefer the pale sort of gold to the like really strangely vibrant gold. Obviously you can paint it with like Balthazar and then go over it in a Retributor as a highlight, but I like my gold to look a bit more dull, because most of the time it's on like red, so it helps it actually pop out even more if it's more dull. which is strange, but yep. Next we're going to paint the wings and the blood drop right on top. The exact same as we did on Lemartes, so Celestial Grey. Now, because it's a flat surface, it's going to be a lot easier. You can just use the side of your brush, like this. Here. There you go. Painted. And just repeat that for each and every single wing. So, almost done with that. Yeah, it's a lot easier since you can just use the side of your brush. If you can, always just use the side of your brush. And then I'm going to grab a bit of Mephiston red. Oh wait, no, this is corn red which I'm grabbing now, not Mephiston, don't know why I said that. I'm going to paint over the blood drop in the middle. Like that. And that's basically the top bit's done. Then we're going to grab some Abaddon Black and paint over the teardrops, or the blood drops. Just there. And there's none more that I can see. So we're going to go back to, actually this time Mephiston red. And we're going to paint the little blood drops in the centre of the chalice. So just right there. And then same on the other side. Then you're going to grab some Screamer Pink to paint the wax part of the purity seal. Over the top there. It is a bit repetitive doing this because it's mostly just the same stuff as on actually Lemartes, but it will look a lot more complete if you actually paint the jump pack fully, because, well, it's actually painted. So yeah, I just gotta wait for all of that stuff to dry. Okay, now we're going to paint all of the lead voucher areas with Nuln Oil, because that'll just really bring out all the nice detail in between. So you actually want a surprisingly small brush for this, just to make sure it's got a nice reservoir for the paint. Just paint right over it, and it'll bring out all of the dips in the vents, like that. That looks a bit more lively than the other one, so it's there. But don't worry about doing it on these ones, because they're just flat and end up just looking pooled. But then, since we're waiting for that to dry, I'm going to grab some Agrax Earthshade, and we're going to paint all of the purity seals. Once again, quite a small brush with a bit of a reservoir for paint. Put it in there. Just bring out all of the detail in the little dips and little mountains and little mounds. There you go. Oh, got as well, you want to do a Nuln Oil on the actual chains as well, because that'll bring out all of the gaps in between the links, like this. Same on here. There you go. Now, to paint the blood drops, you're just going to go with the corn red tactic before, of just doing half and then a quarter. So half of this, half of this, and half of this. And then Evil Sons, quarter of it, quarter of it, and a quarter of it. There you go. And we're going to take some Mephiston and paint the blood drops on the top here. Just right at the bottom though. And there you go, the jump pack is basically complete. So the next thing we're going to focus on is the base. Okay, now for a minute, you want to take him out of your little painting holder, your little painting handle, and grab your super glue and glue the jump pack on. So just give it a nice little shape, make sure it's not split. And add a little droplet inside of that little hole there. This is the reason why we masked it off earlier on, so that way the glue settles a bit nicer. You don't have to, but it just looks a bit nicer as well. So just waiting for that to dry. It'll take a few minutes, but once it's dry it won't come off unless you twist it. It'll be very difficult with this event stick in the way because they rest on the shoulders. Here is Lemartes so far. I think it's coming along pretty well. Come back in about 5 or 10 minutes once it's fully dry. Okay, now the jump pack's now got a nice little holder which we can actually use. So now we're going to do all the layering on the purity seals. So because we went over it with Agrax Earthshade, it'll deepen the recesses and bring out the mounds a bit more. So just follow exactly what that's done. If there's a dip, avoid it. If there isn't, then paint over it. And then that's the jump pack done, and we can finally move on to the base. So, for the base, I want to use Macragge Blue, as I like using blue bases, because it just makes the red and black pop out a lot more compared to just going with your basic browns, greens. It just stands out quite a lot more, so just grab quite a thick brush here, grab that, water it down a bit, so it doesn't block out any detail. If you applied the Astro Granite correctly, it should end up with a nice little rough texture to it. So that way it'll look a bit nicer. So just paint over it. Once again, making sure not to miss any spots, and then also painting over the rocks. Yeah, because the rocks would also be blue, going off the sort of blue texture of the planet here. Because rocks, it just makes sense and makes it a bit more nicely meshed together and look more like one single unit. There's also a skull on the base if you look closely, right there. So we'll paint that in a shouty bone and paint it nearly exactly like Lemartes' face, just without the eyes and the crack in the middle. So, yeah. And also you want to paint this little platform which you're standing on as well. So that would also be blue. Don't worry about painting on any of the face, just try not to get it on the feet. That'll be a bit of a pain to tidy up. So there. That's the top part of the base. Almost finished, just got a load of dry brushing. And then we're just going to go in and do the shouty bone on the skull. Just over it. A little bit there. Try not to paint on the blue because that'll just be a bit of a nuisance. Also remember to turn the model to make it as comfortable as possible for you to do. So otherwise it can get pretty uncomfortable at times actually. Surprisingly uncomfortable. There. Now. Oh yeah, if you look here, missed a bit of a spot there, so I'm going to go on that with Macragge Blue again. Painting over there like that. Really tidying up. Then once that's dry, we're going to dry brush it in Lothern Blue. Next, we're going to coat the skull in Agrax. Just painting over the whole thing, like so. And once that's dry, you're going to layer and then just do the black rim. Then you're done. Okay, now that's dry. I'm going to grab a little rubbish dry brush. Grab some Lothern Blue. Give it a good old shake, adds it to our palette, and we're going to dry brush the whole thing. Now, don't make the same mistake I did. You shouldn't paint the skull until after you've actually done the base, because since we're dry brushing, chances are I'm probably going to get it on the skull. I'm going to have to repaint it anyway, so do it after you've dry brushed the base. That's a bit heavy, luckily I only got on the sides, which you're going to be painting black anyway. Just right here and there, making sure to catch every single edge, so that way it'll bring out all of the details. I told you. That just adds another dimension to the colour. Then we're going to add Corax White just to the main actual palette, and then just dry brush that off. Now you want to be very sparing with this, because otherwise it'll end up just looking like a white base, which isn't what we're after. You want to take it till about, if you test it on your hand, about that. So, just very lightly dry brush the whole thing. And there. Nicely detailed base. Once again, since it's dry brush, if you do take it too far, you can just dry brush back over it with your original colour or the previous colour, because I did go a bit heavy there. You want a bit less than that. So, there. And that's your base nearly done. Now we're going to paint the skull exactly the same like you did with Lemartes. Just base coat in a shabty bone, Agrax Earthshade, a shabty bone. Oh wait, no, I actually painted it differently. This is going to be a bit of a brighter skull at the bottom here. Base it in a shabty bone, Agrax Earthshade, and then a shabty bone layer. And then after that's done, your Lemartes is 100% completed. As I said, now we're just grabbing the shabty bone and just layering it on top of the head, leaving only the recesses to still be affected by the Agrax. Like so. Now, you want to take them out of your painting handle, grab your Abaddon Black and do the black rim, and then you are finished. So, got our Abaddon Black here. You want to hold it top and bottom like that, so that way you don't get paint on your fingers and get it anywhere else you don't want it to go. Just paint all over the whole thing, leaving no gaps on the sides. Also try not to paint on top, so you use the side of your brush to get nice coverage, and then you're done.